Hi everyone, and welcome to Fish Easy. In this particular video, we're going to focus on a species profile of the Synodontis Lucipinnis. It is a catfish from Lake Tanganyika. It also is known as the Dwarf Petricola. It doesn't get as large as the Petricola, but by and large, it's the same fish. It's just packaged in a smaller variety. So that might make it more practical for your aquarium. At any rate, we're going to look into some of the details of breeding these catfish and keeping them and getting some enjoyment out of them. So enjoy the footage of the following video that I have prepared for those who are interested in breeding the Synodontis Lucipinnis. We're going to take a look at this tank. This is a 20-gallon. I use a 20-gallon long, and I have just the Lucipinnis in there. I have males and females. Males are slightly smaller, and the females are a little bigger, chunkier, and will develop eggs. As you can see, I have the bright lights off. They don't like bright lights, so I just leave them on the blue setting when the lights are on, and they prefer it in the dark just as well. At night, if you get a chance to sit there in front of your tank at night when it's completely dark, you'll notice the behavior of these fish is completely different. In other words, the swim patterns. They'll be all over the tank, mid-water, at the surface. They'll be all over this tank in the dark. But during the day, they tend to hide. I use, as you can see, cut pieces of PVC, pieces of wood, a couple of box filters for mechanical filtration or biological, and also the egg traps. We'll take a good look at the egg traps as time goes on. In fact, let's take a look inside the egg traps in just a moment, but 3 days ago, I've already pulled out a group of eggs, and they've hatched. I pull them out, put them into this light tray. It's a glass tray, and I got this from a secondhand store. It is in actuality nothing more than IKEA brand, but I haven't been able to source them. But you can find something similar. It's just something to put the tray, to put the water in, and to be able to observe very closely. Now, you probably don't see them just yet, but I'm going to use a flashlight, and I'm going to shine it into the side, and it should really show up everything. Okay, now you see those little catfish. After 2 days hatching, they're now free swimming. It's time to feed them. I always leave the detritus and other mucky muck that comes out of the egg trap with them, because their first food is going to be the small, tiny little creatures that are on there. And believe me, it's definitely in the water. If you look real close with the naked eye, you'll see that there are some tiny creatures milling about in the water system of this. There's no aeration needed. They're very tiny, and there's just a small amount of water level in here. But I'm just going to, first of all, for the first 2 days, let them sit here. And I like this tray because I'm going to use this device here to remove any white eggs. And here's one here. So I use this to remove them because they'll fungus, and I put them into a clear glass bottom, in this case shot glass. So after I've removed them, I can put this over the light as well to see if I accidentally picked up any babies in the process of grabbing those fungus eggs, and I see there's none, so I'm safe. I won't have to put any back. But once I've gotten to this point, I'm ready to put them now into something different. The reason I use something different is because I want to use the tray for checking for eggs, and it's time to move them on to something they'll be in for a while. I use this glass jar. This glass jar is about 1 liter in size, and I'm going to put them in there, and I probably will need just to pour them in there, but also maybe a baster to kind of flush them in, and once they're inside this, I will start to feed them. So let's do that now. I need a baster. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to flush them all down I'm just flushing them to the corner. I'm going to pour some of the some of them into the container here. Mostly water, it looks like. Then I'll take the baster and just make sure I'm, whoops. Just make sure I get, just flush them out. It looks like it picked up a little of the black sand that's in the, I use black sand in the bottom as a substrate. It's not bare bottom. It looks like I got everybody here. Yeah. So I double check. Got everybody out, looking good. And sure enough. So now what I'll do is, with that little tiny amount of water, we're going to be, it'll settle, and they're going to be in the muck, the detritus, and a little bit of sand, and they'll be in that for a number of weeks. It's fine because all the little creatures that are growing in there are definitely getting strobing effect. Okay, so you can see the fryer zipping around. And I would imagine that I didn't count them, but there's probably close to 100 of them, maybe 75 to 100 in here, and they will do just fine in a group. Now is the time to give them the first food. The first food is going to be not brine shrimp. I will give them brine shrimp in a couple of days, and very small amounts, and let it grow. I do never give them a vinegar eels, because vinegar eels are very acidic and they don't do well with Lucipinnis catfish. So in other places, other individuals who've raised these fish, they recommend not using vinegar eels. I'm going to go on their recommendation. I don't need them because I'm going to use actually a very small microworm culture. And so let's go ahead and put these guys on the shelf where I'm going to be keeping them. So I have them here. This is my shelf. There's a batch already a little older. It was a very small batch. As you can see, they grow to a size in these jars without any issues. And I do some water changes. My water changes are quite easy. With one hand, I can just put this onto the shelf. Let's see, it got caught. Yeah, there we go. Just put it like that and then set it down. These lids have a hole along the top. There it is, right there. And so that's what I feed and also do water changes by. This is the air down the center, and I can turn this thing around and it doesn't swirl the air stone. But in this case, the air stone doesn't really need to be on much, just to break the surface. I like to break the surface of the water. And I will go ahead and add some water here. The way I do it is I use this 1 liter bottle with a line attached. And I do that because that way I don't just throw a bunch of water real rapidly in there, but I can also put a, if I wanted to, I could put a controller and have some. So I take, always with Lucipinnis, I take some water that has been aged. So there's definitely no dechlorinator or no tap water without being aerated for a few days or at least 24 hours. And so then I have this water. It's been sitting, came from aerated water in my tank. And so I'm just going to use this now. And the way I'm going to use it is I'm just going to go ahead. Here's a half a liter. Boom, half a liter. And I'm going to take that half liter and place it into the 1 liter ball, 1 liter with the tube. So in other words, all of the water that I just poured is pre-measured. And this is just my water change system. You can add the water the way you want, but now I'll just watch that rise very slowly. Yeah, it's going up. I like that slow method of adding water to my jars. So in this case, I would take water out about half and then put a ½ liter back in. Sometimes I siphon out the bottom. I do like to put a leaf into the bottom, a decaying leaf, only because the catfish love to have a place to hide, and it keeps it dark. These can be probably taken out because the catfish are now so big they don't really, it doesn't really matter. But for these real small ones, I'll put a small leaf in here, and with the small leaf, it's kind of good because I'm going to, with the small leaf, I'm going to have a place for them to hide. And they also will use the air stone, so they will congregate on the bottom of the air stone as it goes. Right now there's no air going into it. I will adjust the air to something like, let's turn it on. Okay, and then back it off. And like I said, I just want to break the surface, so it's kind of very minimal. I'm not trying to make much current. I don't want a lot of flow. That's not the point. That's really too much. It's coming out both ends now. Let me see if I can back it off even further. There we go. Just a little tiny drizzle. If you can get a good look there, you see it's just tiny, tiny bubbles. And at the surface, they're kind of breaking up the surface. Okay, keeps the film off and then oxygen exchange. So as the water that we put in there is already been put in here, I put in ½ liter, so I'm done with that. So take that out. The reason I do the measurement amounts is I didn't used to do that. I used to just put a bunch and it would overflow and I would lose babies and fry off these jars because I wasn't paying attention. So now I force myself to pay attention by noting exactly the amount that I take out and the amount I put back in. So now I can walk away and not fear that I'm going to overflow and forget that I'm refilling. Okay, so now let's give them their first feed. What I will do is grab the microworms. So let you see from maybe up here from this side. What I'm going to do is the microworms is something you could overdo, get too much if you're not careful. It's so easy to overdo it. And you don't want to put so much because they're not going to eat it all. They're going to die. And then you'll have a real problem. So I'm looking at my microworm cultures. Here's one. This one is looking pretty good. This one has some crawling up the sides. It's such a small amount that I need. And this will do just fine. You can see above crawling up on the side this amount. So I'm going to take just a small amount, just a tad, and we're going to take a good look as I put it in. I'm going to see if I can get up close for you so you can see how much really we're putting in here. Okay, it's a little cloud. There it is. I'm just going to swirl it around. And they'll last 24 hours, right? I mean, you don't die instantly. They'll last a little while. And now we have it. That is all I'm going to put in there. I'm not going to try to put any more than that. So that will be their first feeding. The microworms will sink to the bottom, and that's one of the great reasons for using microworms. And that's the bottom is where these fry are at. They're scooting along the bottom. So they're going to find those microworms. Maybe in a few minutes as they settle, the microworms will go down and get in there. So that's it. That's the first feeding. So now, let's go back to the okay, we're returning back to the tank, and now that we have an empty container, what I want to do is we're going to go ahead and show you the components of this egg trap. And this egg trap is got a couple of things about it, make it easy. I usually remove my watch, so let's do that. Let's take off my watch because I'm going to be putting my hand in there. And I also will grab my towel, dry my hands off after I've put my hands in there. And so now we're ready to just go fishing. So let's see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and put the camera where you can see what's going on. Okay, yeah, you can see everything, it looks like. So I take the lid off and I kind of open it up so I can get to it. Then I'm going to take this pot. It's an upside down pot with a hole on one side. So you can see it's like a cave. It's got this cave where they can go in and out, and it creates a nice dark place. Then on the bowl, this is just a cereal bowl I got at a used secondhand store. And so got really cheap, but it was just about the right size for that pot. And so you can go with a little larger pot if you want to. The egg trap has a small amount of fiberglass netting. This is barbecue matting. And this barbecue matting is used all the time on barbecues for cooking meat, and you can cut it to size with scissors because it's not metallic, it's actually fiberglass. And then there's marbles. I have the marbles in here only to hold up this so that the eggs will drop through and weigh it down basically and keep the netting to the top, or shall we say the bottom of the plan. Now I'm going to dump the water. So I'm going to keep the netting there. I'm going to just dump the water like that. And then I'm going to take a look to see what we got. And it appears in this particular case, there are no eggs. If there were eggs in here, they're non-adhesive, and so they would have come out very easily. I can use my flashlight to double check, but it would be very obvious. Now, what I do see in there is some pieces of food, and let you get a close-up of that. This food is just what fell into those are not eggs. That's granules. Looks like the granules I fed them with last night, and some detritus and the like. And I will just go ahead and put this back. So I'll just go put this back into the tank. There are no eggs. If there were eggs, I would I would keep refilling it and keep flushing it out until I got all the eggs out of that trap. But since there was not even a single egg, I know that there was no egg. So then I just take this. It would sit normally like this but I always turn it backwards so that they go in and out in the back of the tank, away from me. And this one is the same one. We may as well just check it. It's just sort of a cavey, kind of a cave. I didn't use a flower pot in that case, but let's go ahead and just double check this one. So we'll do the same thing. We're going to pull it out. And so after I did it the first time, I would usually put water back in and dump it the other direction. And look for eggs. Now that's interesting. It appears that we do have something. In this particular egg trap, it looks like there's a few fry. Now remember, there were 70 or 80 in that last batch, right? And that certainly was a lot of eggs turned or hatched. What hatched? There was probably half again is more located in the half again as many more eggs in that trap that came out, but of course not all were fertile, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just take another look, but you'll see that from 3 days ago there must have been some eggs in the trap that I didn't get all the way out because they've hatched inside the trap. They usually hover around in the bottom, and if you look real close in here, like right there, you'll see a baby fry or two. I see 1, 2 or 3 in here. So those are very savable. I mean, I'm just going to take my eyedropper and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to put them into my, this is, okay. And these guys hatch. Here's one that looks like it hatched and then died. It's white right there. So not all of them make it. Some will start to turn white and die, but with all fish breeding, especially egg scatterers such as these, this happens. So I see the one. Is that the only one that got left behind? So once you do get a batch, it's good to check every couple days thereafter, just like, for example, in this case, to catch any that you miss, any eggs that didn't get flushed out. You can save every last one. I don't see any more. Just that one, I guess. I thought there were 2. Okay. So here we have it. There's one. There he is. See him swirling around? Okay. So let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and take that fish and we're going to just put him with the rest. I've got him in my eyedropper now. And we'll just go ahead and put him right into our here. There we go. So now he's with the rest. And that was from the same batch. He just got missed. One egg we missed, but we caught him on the second go around. So that'll all settle down and we'll start to see a lot of activity now with the worms in there. And I'm going to wait probably another day and add maybe one more. When I feel like these microworms have died, they're not wiggling anymore, I'll go ahead and maybe one more time feed them microworms. But by the time they've eaten several microworms, a couple days have gone by and they've grown, and they should be big enough to start eating the very smallest, maybe newly hatched baby brine shrimp. And once they start eating the baby brine shrimp, that's like you see here, their bellies get orange. You start to see orange bellies, and then you know you're off to the races. If any don't ever start to find or don't find food, and they will have some issues, there will be some die off in the beginning. But I suspect most of these, if we really pay attention, watch the timing, get some microworms in there, and then some baby brine shrimp, these will do great. So there you have it. We're going to just raise them in here for a good number of weeks, and then from there we'll go ahead and put them in a smaller tank. I have one over here, and with some young ones. This is a 2.5 gallon for the time being, and you can see how they're growing. These guys are growing well. They start to take on some coloration in their fins. They're just a beautiful little catfish. They have some particular behavioral things, like they like to swarm. They also like to go around circular items. Like this is a circular, or if you had a circular ornament in your tank, or in this case a sponge filter that's circular, they will go around and round it, like at the bottom, underneath where the foot base is, and they just do it for hours. They're always moving, they're always wagging their tails. So from this age, when they get to be a good over 1 inch, they'll be sellable size, and they're always in demand. They're a very nice fish to have. Some of the key points, if I did mention them briefly, I'll just repeat. The adults need to be at 2.5, maybe 3 years in maturity. So they need to mature. They need a couple of years, and they'll reach this size. You see some nice size ones in here. This is as big as they get. They're not huge fish, and they go well with African cichlids, and they go well with just about with anything. I like to put in some ditherfish in here, and the ditherfish I use are typically tiger barbs. They do fine with tiger barbs, and especially since I have them in the dark and the blue light, I even put glow tiger barbs in here, and it makes for a really nice tank and a very interesting display. And of course, being that they lay their eggs in the trap, the tiger barbs is not an issue about getting. They will spawn throughout the tank in these tunnels as well. So I'm only collecting a certain portion, a small portion of the actual spawning behavior that's going on in this tank, but it's definitely sufficient number, and I don't need to collect more eggs than what I'm getting, because otherwise I'd be overrun with them. I sold these to one customer who a couple years later started breeding them and said, "What did you sell me? Rabbits?" Because he was collecting eggs almost every 3 days, and he couldn't believe how many. And you can be overrun with them, but it turns out that they're a nice fish, very hardy. It's not likely that you'll lose them. One of the things about Lucipinnis is that these fish will definitely die in pH crashes. So definitely you need to do water changes, but they don't like water changes. They don't like tap water. They don't like fresh water. So you have to do small water changes. And it's, when I say they don't like it, they'll act erratic, but I've never lost one to a water change. But I have lost them to a pH crash. So if your tank has a lot of detritus or leaves or anything that could cause the pH to drop, or if you're feeding too heavy, be careful. I don't like to feed too heavy. At this age, I'm giving them only food every other day or so, maybe every third day, and they're fine with that. They get enough food. I don't want to overdo it, because too much food will cause the pH crash as well. So there you have it. These are the ins and outs of keeping the Lucipinnis, or breeding, I should say. You can keep them in a tank with lots of rocks where they can hide. I even have one. There is one that somehow got into this tank. I don't know how, but this tank here has a bunch of rocks, and I see it pop out once in a while, and it just pops out and shows itself. And the little thing is growing. but I have no idea how it got in there. All I know is the little fish is by himself, and one day maybe I'll get him out. It's kind of hard to get these little guys out from the rocks. I'm going to have to take all the rocks to do it, but he's just happy by himself, so I don't worry about him. So there you have it. A home like this, they would really be tickled pink. So if you have any questions, be sure to leave them at the bottom of this video. It's one of those videos that if you continue to post questions, I'll always answer them. And I know you'll have success too with the Lucipinnis catfish. The Synodontis breed in different ways. This is the egg scattering variety. The cuckoo catfish, which looks very similar, and it needs a host that is an African cichlid mouth brooder, that it can lay eggs with the mouth brooder and let the mouth brooder hatch the eggs. That's a different species altogether, but these are egg scatterers, and they're very easy to breed in comparison, because a host is not required. So I hope you enjoyed the content and learning something about breeding fish using some devices such as this, and how it's very helpful for me in doing so. Please do me the honor to have your thumbs up and subscription for content like this if it's of interest to you. We do a lot of other things here at Fish Easy. We breed barbs and other fish, and we go through many live streams on Friday nights typically. These are an example of long-finned rosies that we bred a lot of, and also some Odessa barbs. There's some tetras in here too. We're going to take a look at those. So there's always something going on, and I recommend, if you're interested in breeding these fish, I'll show you the techniques I use and the how-tos of everything that goes behind it. Thank you again for your support, and I really appreciate the members and everybody who's been able to help me out on this channel. Take care and have a great day. Be sure to keep it real.